So number one, we got Caleb Williams here going to the Chicago Bears, and I feel like it's all. It feels like it's written in stone with Caleb going to the Bears, with Fields getting traded to somebody else down the road. I just feel like that's where we're heading towards now with the Bears right now. And Caleb, listen, he didn't have a great season last year, 2023. I think you can take a look at that USC team, and it definitely digressed some. The defense, I mean, Lincoln Riley, that's to be expected with a Lincoln Riley coach team. And then you also take a look at other aspects of that USC team. The offensive line wasn't great. Caleb was running for his life a couple times, and he had to make a couple of Superman plays. Now, sometimes he made those plays on his own accord, but still, I think, you take a look at Chicago, you're going to get some assets back for Fields. You're going to get Caleb in there. I think you already have your left tackle and right tackle set up, and you got DJ Moore. You got some good foundational pieces in Jalen Johnson and Sweat. I feel like, honestly, the Bears, I mentioned this either a pot or two ago, it feels like the Bears are set up pretty well this offseason. And getting their one pick, I think you draft Caleb, a guy that is a really great quarterback and is, without a doubt, the number one QB.
Yeah, and really they're set up so much better now than they were when they took Justin Fields, right? Like, I typically do not like the move they made to take Justin Fields because you traded away your future first at that point in time. So not only do you have a bad team to begin with, you had a team that did not have a future first coming in. It was a team with very minimal options too in the passing game. Flash forward, 4 years now and 3 years now, and you got DJ Moore on the roster. You've got this pick plus another one in the top 10 as well. You've just got a lot more positive things going in the right direction now, right? And so, yeah, I definitely think Fields gets moved. In my opinion, they need to make that move soon-ish, probably to me before the draft, right? Like, yeah. I look at the Baker Mayfield, Deshaun Watson situation, and what you don't want to have is both guys on the roster at the same time. That's how Baker Mayfield ends up being traded for peanuts, I think they need to make that move very soon. I agree completely. Caleb Williams, number one quarterback in this draft. I like a couple of these other guys quite a bit, but I do think from an NFL standpoint, for sure, it is Caleb Williams. He's the guy. To me, I will say this, though, Ryan. I view him closer to the way I viewed both Stroud and Young last year, which obviously Stroud would go on to be amazing, awesome this year. I viewed those guys as more of like a standard number one pick, kind of like I did like Jared Goff and Carson Wentz all those years ago. I do not view him in the uber mega tier where I did Joe Burrow and Trevor Lawrence, right? Not all first overall picks are made the same, right? Like I had Jameis Winston well above Jared Goff. And obviously those projections are, not always going to work out that way, of course. That's a great example of it, right? Jared Goff's going to be a really good quarterback, Jameis Winston a backup. But just my current sitting here right now, I view Caleb Williams a bit closer to where I viewed Goff, Stroud, Young. I'm not told my socks are still on. He did not blow them completely off the way that Burrow and Trevor both did.
That's a good point. Taking a look at past quarterbacks, I mean, he is up there, but I don't think he is quite up there with some of the better ones we've seen. Now, if he does have a CJ Stroud type of rookie season, well, then I'm sure the Bears will gladly take that because that means they're in the postseason. So, I mean, you take a look at him last year, obviously a downgrade from his Heisman Trophy winning season. So, but I think he lands in a decent spot here with the Bears. They got a lot of things set up here for him right now, and I think it's going to be good for the Bears. You got your quarterback here, you got your number one receiver, you got your number one edge rusher, and then you got another pick here in the top 10, and you're going to get with whatever you get back from Fields.
Like you mentioned, Brock Bowers, though, he's right there also, and Twitter is going to be out of control if Brock Bowers would have been the pick here because the tight end history of both Jim Harbaugh with Vernon Davis and then with Greg Roman, who was also there for Vernon Davis, but also in Baltimore with Mark Andrews. And oh, by the way, even in Buffalo, one of his 2 years as offensive coordinator in Buffalo, Charles Clay led the team in targets. So I'm almost happy you didn't put Brock Bowers here because I feel like that's the easy cop-out answer. That's my own personal expectation is Brock Bowers here.
But for the Jets here at number 10, I have, let's see if it loads up here.
Oh, boy.
Brock Bowers.
Oh, man.
Listen, the Jets, I think, do need offensive line help. And I think I made this pick in mind with free agency. I feel like they would get some offensive linemen in there. I feel like they could still take one here, but we give Aaron Rodgers a dynamic offensive weapon here in Brock Bowers. You can line him up in line. You can play in the slot and just adds another weapon to this Jets offense in which you love what you've seen out of Breece Hall. You've loved what you've seen out of Garrett Wilson. Why not add Brock Bowers to this mix with all those rock star pieces that you have in place on that offense? I mean, this guy, man, you know this. I'm an avid fan of the SEC. My balls are in the SEC. I've seen Georgia play for years now. And seeing this guy play for the last 3 years, this guy, man, was unbelievable. It's just like not the fastest 40 time, but you're like, how on earth is this guy getting all these yards after the catch? Like they were doing toss sweeps with them. They were handing the ball off to him. It's just like he was doing anything and everything. And believe it or not, to throw a little college football fact, he's the only 2-time John Mackey Award winner for best tight end in college football history.
Wow.
And that's incredible. And that just speaks to how talented this guy really is. And I have a feeling Aaron Rodgers would be like, man, thank you guys for getting me this guy. Like, he's such a help, you know? And, you know, he could be a nice safety blanket if the offensive line isn't improved. If he, like, I need to get the ball out quickly, where's Bowers? And there he is. So I have Brock here going to the Jets. Jets fans, I think, would be happy with this pick and not booing it.
I'm actually going to push back pretty heavy on this one, Ryan.
Oh.
It's for a few reasons here. Number one, I think Aaron Rodgers. Well, first of all, look at Aaron Rodgers' entire career. Name me a tight end who had multiple good seasons with him. I don't think you can, right? Jermichael Finley is probably the only one that even comes close. And so just Aaron Rodgers has never been a tight end user. And you have to remember, Aaron Rodgers is the GM of this team at the end of the day, right? Also, Brock Bowers, if there is any knocks on him, it is his blocking. And I feel like for Rodgers, part of it goes hand in hand there of why has a tight end never had good receiving years with Rodgers? It's probably because Rodgers counts on you guys to block. You know, Rodgers wants that to be part of it. It's also very important with his running backs, right? It's always been a thing where a running back with alongside Aaron Rodgers needs to be able to protect Aaron Rodgers. So I actually think it's a pretty dicey fit there. In New York, I would prefer. This is actually a spot where I have penciled in Troy Franklin. I think that'd be a whole lot of fun putting him with Rodgers. So I don't love this fit here. So I'm going to tell you, Todd, you're doing it all wrong here. I don't love that fit. I love the player. I do think also because he's Aaron Rodgers, you got to remember the wish list he put out last year, wanting guys like Odell Beckham on his team. I'm sure he saw on Instagram the picture of Brock Bowers standing next to Rob Gronkowski, looking like me standing next to Rob Gronkowski. And I think for Aaron Rodgers, that kind of thing could matter. And so I think that all of that kind of comes together. I love Bowers. I think Bowers is really great. Rookie tight ends usually don't play too well in year one. So for my own personal, for fantasy purposes, I'm not big on Bowers in rookie drafts, but even for the NFL draft, I just don't love this fit. I think that he would have been a lot of a better fit. Yeah, with the Chargers, potentially with the Giants. You know, your Titans even, right? If the chick dream is over.
Yeah.
But I don't love that fit in New York.
It was also just a tough time trying to find a place to fit him in here.
Sure.
And it's just like, okay, where could he go? You know, I look at 11, 12, 13, and those are teams that I don't see either of them needing tight end. I look at the Saints. I feel like offensive line help is probably more of a need. I I had the Colts as I've had the Colts as an option
Yeah.
in several other mock drafts, but like
Yep.
man, him falling all the way to 15
I think
would
12 to the Broncos would be a pretty good spot too.
I've seen it here recently in the last couple of days where that's a potential spot. But I feel like the Broncos, they just got a lot more other needs than a tight end. Now for the Vikings, I have JJ McCarthy.
Oh man, breaking
Yeah,
a whole lot of hearts here.
one thing I have heard here in recent weeks is that it feels like those guys from the McVay, the Shanahan type of tree would really like McCarthy
Yeah,
and his style. And you got O'Connell here. I feel like it would be a fit here where it depends on what happens if they bring back Kirk Cousins or if Kirk is, signed with the Falcons or signed with somebody else. So maybe you wouldn't want him to step away and step right in pretty quickly. But McCarthy, I feel like with O'Connell here, it's also a good infrastructure here with that offense. You got a solid offensive line. You got Justin Jefferson and you got Jordan Addison and Hawkinson, even though he's hurt, you got him down the road. For McCarthy, listen, one thing that he's improved upon with the combine is that we saw a couple of his combine throws, but other than that, did all right. He's put on some weight. And I think that's been something that's been brought up is that you would like to see him put on a little bit of weight here. So I got McCarthy here going to the Vikings. Matt, tear this one away.
this is my favorite landing spot for JJ McCarthy, actually.
Oh,
Either this or the Rams. And it's exactly what you talked about with the coaching tree there. JJ McCarthy, kind of the more I've looked into him, the more I've studied on him, I'm really impressed with everything except for the actual throwing of the football. I thought, especially the combine, I was very unimpressed by his actual throwing. He reminds me a lot of a Garoppolo and Purdy in San Fran, where he commands the line of scrimmage. And, yes, he was able to lean on a defense and a run game and a good team, but he was kind of a field general out there. He was really kind of moving guys around, calling out blocking schemes, calling out stuff. The throws themselves, I'm very unimpressed by. And so putting him in a McConnell system, which comes from the Rams, comes from McVay, with those weapons of Jordan Addison, Justin Jefferson, TJ Hawkinson, that would be outstanding for him. He is maybe the player in this entire draft who, to me, is most land spot dependent. If he goes with the next pick to Denver, I'll be totally out on JJ. If he goes here to Minnesota, I am very much happy with that and in on it. To me, he's a guy. We like to kind of almost play this pretend game in our head where it's like, oh well, Patrick Mahomes would be Patrick Mahomes no matter where he went. To me, that's just not true. Landing spot, infrastructure, coaching, talent around, supporting cast, all of those things are so influential in what these players end up being. Right? If Patrick Mahomes would have gone to the Bears that year, I'm not saying he would have been Mitchell Trubisky, but I'm definitely not saying he would be, three-time Super Bowl champion Patrick Mahomes, right?
right.
And not to compare JJ to Mahomes, I'm not doing that. I'm comparing him more to Alex Smith, where Alex Smith, his first few years in San Fran, really struggled, despite being first overall pick, right? There just wasn't much around him. There wasn't that good situation. Then Jim Harbaugh becomes coach, really even Mike Singletary a little bit before then, right? Things really turned around. That's where I see JJ. I don't like the fact that I keep on kind of putting him in that game manager bucket. And I don't want game manager to be too much used as a knock here. I think that he's very good at managing the offense. And he's very good at running the offense and keeping the offense efficient. Like, I would rather use those words because those are not harsh words. Those have more of a positive context. I like JJ. I just think his actual throws, I'm not in love with. But he's got good mobility. He does very good in the line of scrimmage. He gets the offense organized and puts guys where they need to be. And that's a huge aspect of being an NFL quarterback. And that won't always translate to big yardage numbers or big touchdown numbers. But from an NFL quarterback standpoint, that is important. He is a guy who I would not mind seeing sit behind a guy for a year, right? Like if he tumbled a little bit and went to the Rams and sat behind Stafford, that would probably be my favorite landing spot. Like that's my number one pick for him. But right there in Minnesota, hey, there's a whole lot worse places to have your quarterback starting pack than Hockenson, Addison, Jefferson, and McConnell.
Yeah. And plus that offensive line, you got Darisaw, rock solid offensive line. And listen, you're going to have to pay Jefferson at some point and get a rookie quarterback on that rookie deal and help you out a little bit.
And that's the thing too. If let's say Kirk does leave and they don't draft a quarterback, like then Jefferson's gonna be pretty darn unhappy. And I can see a Justin Jefferson trade happening in the next year or so if they don't get a quarterback figured out.